you think about how things start. I played Mass in my parents' basement as a little child. The youngest of three boys, and Mom had made a set of vestments for my oldest brother, so they were just handed down. Took an old bed sheet, drew a cross on it. That was the vestment. Contrived with chalice and wooden dowels. Dad took wooden dowels with candlesticks, and just played Mass. Somehow the seed was. I had the little hand missile from the 1960s, so I would follow with that, and just sort of started with that as part of. This is what Catholic boys do. They play Mass. I mean, I'm sure I had any Protestant friends at the time. I went to Catholic school, so all my friends were Catholic. I did have one young guy who was Protestant in my friend circle, but we never talked about that. They probably thought it was odd. He was playing Mass in the basement. But that was just sort of part of my thinking about wanting to be a priest, doing it. And if you were at the celebration on a week ago, Sunday, hard to believe it's already been a week from that, you would have heard, I know Jim and you heard this, about my homily, about how, at that time, when I was a little kid, thinking about priesthood, I'm only thinking about what the priest does at the altar. I don't think about all the other things the priest does. That comes later. That comes after that. That photo, by the way, is from my ordination Mass. After Bishop Braxton, Brother Mark, may he rest in peace, took all those photos. I'm fortunate, interesting, when I told my family, as I was discerning a vocation, the mixed reaction of it. My oldest brother, he had for a short time discerned with the La Salette missionaries, but he did not persevere. He subsequently entered the army, then went and came out, and got married and had 6 kids. That was his calling in life. My sister married, had 2 wonderful daughters. Brother is still single, California, great musician. You heard his music Sunday that he composed for my celebration. My brother Larry, he was kind of questioning whether or not, because after his experience, I don't want to do this. My sister was supportive. My brother was supportive. My dad, well, let's say he was not quite supportive. I think he remembered the oldest brother just went, do you really want to do this? And how that showed itself. I graduated college at the height of the Reagan recession, just to put it in context, 1982. Trying to find a work, stable job, and all this stuff. And so I would talk about this, but then he'd call the next day, oh, by the way, I saw this job ad in the paper. Why don't you apply for that? My stepmother, she didn't say much about it. She just made, because stepmother, say that a family issue like this. So finally, I'm determined to do this. I need to do this. So I said, okay, I got to talk to Dad. I offer prayers to the Holy Spirit. And then I called Dad and said, Dad, I want to come and talk to you about this. So I go. I'm expecting that, get this job, for you. And Dad, I want to explore, but I want to be a priest. He said, okay, that sounds fine. Tell me more about it. This total change in how he approached my call. I still wasn't, 100% certain that I would get this far, but it had his blessing, so to speak. Because his other comment was, well, you're over 21, so, go for it. Then, the next exciting thing of my dad, when I was clothed as a monk, that means I was first given the habit, became a novice, in my name. He also questioned, why do you got to change your name? He's got a good name. That's part of the thing, a new life, new name. And the day of my clothing, Abbot Luke, that some of you remember, was the abbot, gave me the habit, gave me a copy of the rule, gave me my name. After the ceremony, my dad gave me a hug. First time. And from that moment, it was like I could do no wrong. I mean, the pride that he had for what I was doing. And in a sense, as I look at it, I think my mom has something to do with it. As this is my stepmother. My mom died in 1984. I had been out of college 2 years. In her own way, talk about intercession of the communion of saints, she made sure that all of her kids were taken care of. And I got taken care of, finally. So, priesthood. Now, the monastic calling, priesthood calling are two different vocations. You don't need to be a priest to be a monk. But through history, the majority of monks are priests. So that was the track Abbot Luke agreed to, because the abbot makes the decision about this. He agreed to let me be ordained. And I was fortunate to do my studies at St. John's, Collegeville, Minnesota, for my priesthood studies. A wonderful experience. And then it came time to choose the date for the ordination. And I thought, well, the fall of 98 would be fine, because everyone will be back from vacation, do it fine. Abbot Thomas was determined. Let's do it on July 4th. Let's get it done as soon as possible. Don't want to wait. Okay. So we started planning the ceremony, everything. Bishop Braxton was I was his first priest, by the way. And what touched me about him, he asked if he could bring his mother to the ordination. Because she had never seen him ordain anyone before. I said, sure, bring mom, why not? So, I'm the first priest from Troy. Troy, Missouri, by the way, that's where I'm from. Didn't know, small town. At that time, it was a small town.
Ever?
Pardon?
The first priest ever from Troy?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I could believe it too, because the parish was founded in 1891. Now, other young men had tried the vocation, like my brother, but had not persevered. So I'm the first priest and the first male religious from Troy. There have been several young women who've become nuns, but I was the first in that. So I checked those two boxes off. So they were planning the reception, and the hospitality ladies were saying, well, it's 4th of July. People are going to be on the holiday. There won't be that many people there. The church was fairly well packed. Well, half my family showed up. Not that far from Troy. Plus half of Troy showed up. I spent the entire reception giving my first blessing. When it was over with, Dad had already gone home. Because he had seen me ordained. He had his little lunch. He was going to come back the next day for my first Mass, so he already gone home. All was left with a piece of cake. Which I would not have done if Blake had saved it for me. But it was a beautiful. The reason I chose Labor Day weekend, I didn't want to do the July 4th thing. It worked out. There was more than just one piece of cake left. I was very happy with how things turned out. So, from July 4th, I was going to experience now more than just celebrating Mass, more than just the good parts of priesthood. And one of my earliest experiences, barely ordained a week, we have a dear old friend of the community who's in hospital. She's going to have aortic surgery. They don't know what's wrong with her. She calls the Abbey. She wants to be anointed. Okay, great. I do not know this woman from anybody. I've never met her before. Her name is Shotzi Polvold. And so we get the phone call, and I'm saying, well, get someone who knows her. That way they can have the relationship. Abbot Thomas, no, you go. You go do this. Okay. So I go to Mercy Hospital, and there's Shotzi with her husband and the kids and grandkids gathered around the bed. And she's kind of scared because she doesn't know what's going on. So we have the anointing of the sick, and the prayers, get to know her a little bit better. Get the phone call the next day, they found nothing. She's going to be okay. And she says that she's my first miracle. That was our connection. But it was you may have heard said, a priest experiences usually in a day all the emotions. the joys and the sorrows in one day. And we get that, we have days like that, or weeks like that. And that was just a wonderful thing, getting me out of my comfort zone, because ministering to people I don't know. But they're part of the Abbey family, or they may not be, but just getting to know them and helping them in that way. And so since that time, I've had the opportunity to administer sacraments to a variety of people. Live my priesthood that way, because I'm more than just a mass priest. I'm more it's building a relationship with the people in my community, the people beyond my community. When I was sent to Washington, D.C. from 2006 to 2009, another opportunity to get out of my comfort zone and minister to people in a variety of ways. It was a great experience to have that, to get out of that, and realize how I can live my priesthood with my monastic life. It's just a wonderful thing. And then, one of the things I really, I can't believe it, I pinch myself. I've had the good fortune to kind of celebrate Masses with the last three popes. You recall in 1999, we had a St. John Paul II, may have heard of him. He came to St. Louis. I don't think any of us would have imagined that John Paul II would ever come to St. Louis, but he did. And I was ordained barely 6 months at the time, but I got to celebrate that Mass. Now we're in the Dome. You know, we're way, way far from it. But still. Then in 2008, I'm in D.C., the 10th anniversary year of my ordination. Who should come to D.C., but you may have heard of him, Benedict XVI? The Mass is in National Stadium, brand new baseball stadium for the national team. The Papal Mass was the first sold-out event. Give you a sense how good the baseball team was. I was deep in left field. No, deep in right field. Because the Pope was at home base. But that, wow. And okay, who would have thought 2 papal masses? Well then, in 2019, I'm in Rome for the Four Majors program, which, if you're going to be novice mass, you got to learn how to do it. So you spent some time in Rome, and it was during Holy Week. I got to celebrate the Chrism Mass in St. Peter's Basilica. And I was a little closer that time, a little closer to the high altar. But it was also, and what I really liked about that, if you've been to the Chrism Mass, part of the ritual is the bishop asks the priest to renew their priestly promises. I've done it here at the Cathedral Basilica, which is kind of nice. But here with the Pope asking those questions. Like, oh my gosh, this is the top guy. And it really meant a lot for me. And if I never go to the Chrism Mass in my life, fine, I've done it. You know, the Pope asked the question, it's really good. But the other highlight was Francis. Go back to 2016. As some of you know, I was Abbot Thomas's secretary, assistant, etc., etc., etc. Because you make Abbot Thomas's stock, and Mr. Cass knows, and some of you parents know, Abbot Thomas is in a wheelchair, and needs help doing various things. So I would travel with him. And so we go to the Abbots Congress in 2016. At the Abbots Congress, all the abbots from around the world, they get to have a private audience with the Holy Father. And since I was Abbot Thomas's carer, I got to go. So we wheel in, and we're sitting like in the third row. And so the Pope comes in, gives his little talk to the abbots. I don't understand a word of Italian, so I don't know what he said. We got the speech later. Then he greets the abbot presidents of the various congregations. And at that point, the primate, not the wolf, asked the Holy Father, would you mind greeting everybody? There are 300 of us in this room. Abbots and assistants, etc., etc., etc. Abbesses, everyone's there. Holy Father says yes. Now, his handlers, I'm going to call them his handlers, are they're looking at their watches, and you can see the Pope's he's got to be somewhere else. The Pope acts like he's got all the time in the world. So I wheel Ebba Thomas up, Ebba Thomas being Holy Father, and then one of those handlers takes Ebba Thomas, wheels him out of the way, and I have my moment with the Holy Father. I get back to my seat, and a monk taps me on the shoulder. What you say to him? If I had planned to say something, I would not have shook his hand. I didn't think. It's okay, I'm going to people. This is cool. People audience, cool. But to actually get to shake his hand was a great blessing. Because you look at his face, I saw gentleness. I saw kindness. And that just really meant a lot. And so for me, I hope that I can exude, would that be a good word, exude? Show that when I'm greeting people. I don't think I would do that. But it's a way to, a model for that. So those are those highlights of the priesthood that I always cherish in my life that people can't take away from me. The boys tease me about that because I use the photo of the Pope, me and the Pope sometimes and stuff, and they tease about being, me and the Pope like that. Not real. Pope does not remember me from Adam, probably. If I ever see him again, like, who are you? Unlike Cardinal Burke, who knows me. That man, memory is phenomenal. For name, what you're doing. Pro-life Mass, January 2009? No, 2008. I meet up with the Priory pro-life entourage at Holy Rosary Church, where they always have the Mass after the bus, whatever, gets there. I show up from St. Anselm's Abbey. Cardinal Dominic is there getting vested, and hello, how you doing, Father? Have Mass, fine. At the end of Mass, he, of course, acknowledges Father Rafe, the pro-life icon for decades. And then Dominic says, we also welcome Father Dominic of St. Louis, and he's in D.C. doing this and this. I'm like, he remembers that? Between him and Bishop Braxton, two phenomenal memories, because Bishop Braxton also ordained me deacon. And the week before my ordination as deacon, we met, talked about family, et cetera, about who's who, what I'm doing, why I'm doing this. He then proceeded in the homily, without notes, acknowledge each member of my family, talking about them, mentioning my departed mother, everything. We're walking out of the church. Did I get that right? Yeah. For us forward a year later. We don't have the same, we meet again to talk about ordination priesthood. We don't review the family history. I'm sitting in middle choir, and it's July 4th. It's a sort of a warm day anyway, and I'm sweating under. I'm just saying, could you get through this? I'm just it's over with. He once again rehearses my family, who's who, without notes. My gosh, phenomenal. I don't have that memory. I'm like, Father Paul. You ask Father Paul, when did Dr. Mike Stock graduate from Priory? He would say that just like that, and where he went to school. It's like phenomenal. Up to his dying day, he could do that. Remarkable for that. Hopefully I'll have a video to try and remember when you graduate, where you go to school. But the priesthood has been a great gift for me, because it is something that God planted a seed many years ago. If you read book never published, it was a self-published book I did. I talk about my vocation call, about how as a child I had this dream, a recurring dream, where I'm kneeling at the foot of an altar and this guy just like a vision over me saying prayers. And it repeats several times as when I'm 5, 6 years old. And then it stops, because I'm getting older, thinking about other things. Once I get to the monastery, I think it was that I'm a novice of simple vows. The dream occurs one more time. The exact same dream. And I thought, oh, that's what that dream means. I understood it. Like I'm where I was supposed to be. Only in hindsight do we understand how God works. We just have to be open to it. And those of you I've told the story before about my vocation call, my vocation journey, in 1988, I finally started doing something about, vocation. And I went to the vocation director of the Archdiocese of St. Louis, and we talked. And I said, well, I'm interested in teaching. He said, well, you remember the Austin priest, there's no guarantee you're going to, find it in school because we need priests in the parishes. So he gave me this book of postcards. 1988, no internet. Postcards for every imaginable sport that you could think of. He said, just go through there, find some boards you might be interested in, fill them out, mail them in, see what happens. I'm going through there. I see St. Louis Abbey. Oh, they're in St. Louis. I'm in Troy. That's close. Fill out the postcard, mail it in. I start getting, I call it propaganda, of the various communities, and it's piling up on my desk. And about a year, I look at it, I read it, set it aside, get the next one, set it aside. Lent of 89 comes along. I got to do something. I need to either pursue this or just, okay, God, give me a sign. Dangerous. Asking God to give you a sign. So in Lent, I think the first part of Lent, I still have the letter. I got a letter from Father Myers, who was a patient director of St. Louis Abbey at the time. It was a typical form letter. We have a video we can watch, you come visit, yada, yada, yada. At the bottom, he had hand calligraphy. I wonder prior to get a hand calligraphy letter. Hand calligraphy, which said, I have not heard from you. If I don't hear from you, I'll assume you're no longer interested and won't bother you anymore. That was my son. So I then responded, sent return card, and I want to see the video, I want to visit, etc., etc., etc. Within a week, I had a phone call from Father Myers. Well, when can you come and stay? Wait. Let me just come in and visit and look you over and, maybe stop by after work one day. I'm working at the time in the basement of the old Sears building on Kings Highway in Martin Luther King Drive. That's where I'm working. I'm commuting from Troy every day to there. So I said, okay, on my way home I can stop it. I said, Father Miles, where is 500 South Mason Road? I'm from Troy, I don't know these things. He starts describing how to get there. I had been driving past the place for 2 years and didn't know it. I tell people, God was showing me the way to go. I was taking the wrong exit. But there was something about driving on that property that first afternoon. It felt right. It just felt, yeah, this is where. So then I got excited. I need to pursue this. And then they said, well, wait, why don't you just hold off, let's. But we finally worked out that I would then enter, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and you say the rest could be history. But there's also another part that I think all fits together. I know I sound like I'm jumping back and forth and all around, but it's probably the best way to tell the story, jumping around. Also, when I was little, the Mass had just come into English. The revision had not taken place in the 70s, but Mass in English. And there was a part of the Mass called the prayers at the foot of the altar, which was a call and response with a verse and responsory before we get to the Confiteor. And there was the verse from Psalm 42, I will go to the altar of God, that God gives joy to my youth. And that verse always struck me for some reason. I mean, now I know. But then, and in my childhood innocence, I'll have that put on my gravestone. Why I thought that, who knows? And so it's the one that attracted me. And in these past years, I've been reflecting on why. What did those two verses, that verse mean for me? And so Jim, Jackie, bear with me. I'm going to read for the poem that I wrote, which I shared on Sunday. On these verses, I will go to the altar of God, the God who gives joy to my youth. I was stumbling on the road, not knowing what path to take, till His love revealed the course, in whose footsteps I made haste. I will go to the altar of God, to God who showed me the way. Not knowing what to believe, nor who to turn for wisdom, till His love opened my heart to the only sure means of salvation. I will go to the altar of God, to God who taught me the truth. In dread of an uncertain future, whose ending was veiled in darkness, till His love took away the clouds to reveal the light wherein I was reborn. I will go to the altar of God, to God who gave me life. Once I was old, stumbling along a darkened path, but now I am young, bathed in a light guiding my every step, till His love brings me home to be with my God forever. I will go to the altar of God, to God who gives joy to my youth. Thank you.